You always got to be learning. You always got to be figuring out, what are my competitors not doing? What can I do more effectively? And how can I scale that? Sending a carrier pigeon, probably not scalable. What is scalable is having a system where you can dedicate technical resources or human resources to a specific strategy. And that really sits in this ABM, ABS strategy, right? So it's like, how do you attack these accounts? And then how much do you want to spend on each account per lead? And then what do you need to do per opportunity, which I love that cost metric, by the way. Cost per opportunity is much better than a cost per lead.
Welcome to the Modern Selling Podcast, where we help the entire sales community to create more sales conversations with today's modern buyer. This includes anyone from entrepreneurs and business owners to sales reps and sales leaders. Each episode, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, connect, and nurture your relationships with your buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., your host, and you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And I've got a fantastic guest with me today. You're going to enjoy it. One of our partners, as well as Vingresso, is a customer as well. And I couldn't be more excited to have Mr. Erik Kostelnik, the CEO of Postal.io. And he is on with me today to talk all about account-based selling and how to be able to win more, generate more leads, and increase customer retention, improve customer retention as well. Erik, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, Mario, how are you? Good to be here.
Awesome. So founder and CEO of Postal, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about a little bit about Postal, how you got here. And then I've got a very special question about you that I want to ask you.
Okay. All right. I'm nervous. By the way, I'm broadcasting from my 8-year-old's bedroom right now. So
I was wondering why you had those little teeny trophies there, like
I was going to say, I don't keep my 8-year-old trophies, believe it or not, on my wall still, but
that's
this
hilarious.
is
I didn't want to ask. I was thinking about asking, and then I said, well, maybe he just commemorates, little small things that happen over his lifetime.
It's the little wins. It's the little wins. I got kicked out of my office, but all good. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. I've been a career sales guy. I've sold anything from cars to power tools to job postings in the recession. And eventually, made my way into Silicon Valley, started kind of working my way into leadership in startups, was able to join a couple early startups starting in 2013 and work those businesses up to successful acquisitions. And I figured out, hey, you know what? I've been making these Stanford and Harvard guys so much money. Why don't I go ahead and try to start something myself? And so I went in with my business partner, one of my good friends, Jed Danner, who was actually in Cincinnati for our first business. And we started a company called Text Recruit, which was the first text message-based recruiting company. And we basically turned all email into text message for recruiting. And that became an extremely successful business. We scaled that over 4 years, sold that to a company called iSIMS, which is now a Vista Equity company. And during that exit, we started thinking about, hey, what's the next thing? This was so much fun. Why don't we go ahead and try to do the next thing? And I really wanted to do something in sales and marketing. And specifically, number one, because it's my passion. And I absolutely love salespeople, love marketers, love the challenge, love the fight, love the hustle. At the end of the day, we saw an incredible opportunity within this offline world. And where text message was really interesting for recruiting, it was a 30-year-old technology that we actually created a platform for, made it agnostic across all the applicant tracking systems, and then created a value for customers. We believe that the sales and marketing world has been so focused on digital, and the technology and the automation has been so focused on automation, that we really wanted to create something that took old school thoughts and old school methodologies, but brought all that incredible technology from the last 20 years into play. And that is offline engagement, whether it be, it's pretty much your marketing closet in the cloud, right? So how do you take all those note cards, those postcards, those brochures, those white papers, the swag, the gift baskets, the wine, whatever you're sending to your customers, and how do you create the same type of workflow and technology that you do in your digital advertising, your marketing campaigns, your email, your LinkedIn messages, your video, your social, all those things that having hundreds of billions of dollars of value of technology built to it. let's go ahead and do that for the offline. And so essentially that's where we are today. We've built this system that we launched. And as you know, it's become an incredible technology and customers are loving it. So that's what you can hope for, right? As a founder and a salesperson.
And just in a short period of time, you guys have had some amazing success in just a short period of time. And I say short period of, we're talking about 2019 is when I think you started the postal.io, right?
Well, we launched in May. So, this was a concept that everybody kind of sees like, oh, well, you launched in May. Well, this was something I've been thinking about for like 2.5 years. We're all entrepreneurs. We have our book of business. We'll talk about account-based selling in this episode. That's your book of business. So you need to make sure you attack it. So that being said, finally, it came to culmination and we had done our exit and earn out with the last company. And in August, we started it. I had been working closely with Mayfield Fund, which is an incredible sales and marketing automation venture capital firm that funded Marketo, that funded Outreach.io, that has basically 20 different investments in enterprise software. And they believed in us and they believed in the purpose. And we basically got to be able to close our seed and A together. So we raised $9 million in October of 2019, built product, got it to market, and COVID happened. Right?
Oh, wow.
So we launched dead into COVID. And so really my thought is that 2020, it's going to kind of be one of those do-over years.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can grow the business in a do-over year, then I believe that we're going to have a good chance of becoming $1 billion company. And that was my goal with this. I'm comfortable. I'm good. I want to build $1 billion company in San Luis Obispo, and I want to do that in the next 5 years. How do I do that? The pages have been printed on Marketo's success, on Outreach and Sales Loft's success, and Gong's success now. We know what that playbook looks like, and you can't wait. So we built a great team here in San Luis Obispo on remote, and this COVID period of time, believe it or not, worked out for us.
Fantastic. Love the story. And I agree with you 100%. Every salesperson is an entrepreneur. I like to say it in this way, that they are a CEO of their own individual business. If they've got $1 million a year quota, $1 million a year quota is a pretty big, small business, right?
If you're selling technology, you get 10 to 20X, right? Exactly. Gong got 60X on their valuation, 60X, right, on the revenue. So it's like if you're managing $1 million book of business, dude, that's like a $15 to $20 million value business that you're running.
Yeah.
So first off, you should get paid, or make sure you're getting paid.
Right.
Number two is make sure that you're ensuring that you have a repeatable process and you know what to do in order to make sure that you're successful. And that's where you guys come in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do me a favor. Tell us something that nobody would know about you, even if they were to look at your social profiles.
I was going to go the whole, I am a winemaker on the side, but that's like a natural tech to winemaker, transition there.
Heard that one before.
Pretty lame.
You got to give me something juicy, man. Like something like,
all right.
Nobody else knows.
So I was in a band in 2007 through 2010. We have an album that's still available on Spotify and iTunes and all the providers. We toured the West Coast. I was the lead singer and guitarist and songwriter. And we played at all the kind of mid-sized venues in San Francisco and Central Coast and down in LA. And, we went up to Oregon and Washington a few times. So yeah, man, that was like a dream of mine. And, I think everybody has those things in your life that you want to accomplish. And I wrote those things down, when I was in my 20s and said, hey, I want to write a book. I want to start a company. I want to start a band, make certain amounts of money at certain ages. So I keep that list and I try to tick it off. And that one was super hard because I was not the best singer, but I had to take lessons and teach myself how to play guitar. But I tend to be pretty creative. I got a mom who's an artist and a dad who's a business guy, and I'm a Gemini. So I kind of combine those forces like Voltron and we had a pretty successly band and it was super fun. And believe it or not, my drummer is now our lead UI designer for Postal. So I'm still keeping it in the family.
So usually you don't get like the whole musician to CEO, venture capital funding, and and then now on top of that, you had the drummer who came in and now is the lead UI guy. So you guys a bunch of tech guys who had a talent, and you leveraged it over here, but then you blew up over here. So I love that.
Yeah.
What was the name of the band?
I'll let your viewers and your listeners figure that out. It's on the internet. I'm sure some like deep web Boolean searches can be found, but I'll let you guys find that
All
out.
right. We're going to find it and we're going to put it into the show notes and make sure we got
nice. Good.
Spotify.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Buy it on iTunes. We still can make money off it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You'll get a few bucks here and there, right?
Yeah.
So let's spend some time talking about and transition into this new era, this new world, what I call the new normal of selling. And it's funny because if you go back to all of my keynotes that I've ever given over the last 3 years, on a slide, I would show the old way of selling and I would show the new way of selling. And the old way of selling was most sales organizations traditionally had reps that did phone calls, they did email blasts, and they did events. And that was the traditional way that most people were engaged. And then if you looked at the new way of selling that I started, really evangelizing 4 years ago, that has really taken a hold as of right now, we called it the omnichannel way, the omnichannel approach to sales prospecting and sales engagement. And on there, it has all that old stuff that you used to do, although the events is probably a little bit hard now in a completely virtualized selling world. But it had all the old stuff, but around it had engagement through social, engagement with video. It had on there engagement through text and direct mail and good old fashioned snail mail to be able to actually send material and content and those types of things, right?
Sure.
So gifting and direct mail and those types of things. So interestingly enough, in this new virtualized world, I believe that sellers need to think differently about how they approach their business. And more importantly, sales leaders who are basically our age, right? 45 and older. We grew up selling in a very different way in a completely different environment. And right now, it's hard, bro. It is hard to be able to make those sales happen. So tell us, why do you think sellers need to do something different than what they've done before in order to reach today's buyer?
We're going to date ourselves on this, but I graduated college in 2001, right? So I saw the come up of the bubble and then the burst of the bubble. And ultimately, I grew up in New Jersey, so all the trade towers aftermath was a part of that. And going into business at that time was hard. That was hard. That might have been the hardest time emotionally because of the impact of what happened. And a lot of folks, we always remember what happened. And those of us that were around, obviously, super challenging times. But from an economic standpoint and a business perspective, that was extremely difficult. Then you run into basically a 6-year, what was sort of a bull market, come up from the down. And then you run into the mortgage crisis and the financial crisis, 2008, and the Great Recession. And that was hard. And I was selling job postings at that time. So I was, by the way, bartender when I graduated because I was like, I'm not going to go into investment banking right now. I can't do that, right? The trade towers. So went and became a bartender, waited for about a year before things kind of cleared out, and then got back, got into the workforce, into the white collar workforce, of course. Sold job postings during the recession. And now I'm selling sales and marketing technology in the pandemic. So I'm just telling you that because I have some experience with this. That is how I build some credibility with everybody listening. Today's day and age of how we're selling and what we're selling, every single time I picked up a phone and engaged someone when I was in the recession selling job postings, there was no Salesforce. We got a spreadsheet and we got a phone and we got a document to write our notes on. You had to come up with different strategy on how to use the phone and how to make people pick up and how to engage people. And that became like the culmination of how to cold call. And that was a big thing in the late 2000s. Like, what is the way to cold call? And the books were written on how to cold call. But then you realize everybody got that book. Everybody got that memo of how to cold call. Then the impact of cold calling got suppressed and ultimately had to change and do things differently. That was then the advent and the opening to outreach and sales loft and also InsideSales.com, right? You have these systems of like, no, you need to do sequences of calls. You need to go have a cadence of these calls. And then you have to have email that sends out automatically. And that was like the bull run of the 2010s. And now we're at the same period of time. It's the same exact thing happened. So you now have everybody getting that playbook. Everybody has the outreach and sales loft playbook. What can you do now that's different than that? And outreach and sales loft are doing, and HubSpot as well, are doing a great job with connecting to companies like ours that actually bolster their service offering. So create more impact and more reach into different areas such as social, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, inside of the social selling, inside of those applications. You also have video, right? So you're able to record video and put it in outreach sales off sequences. Then you're able to now send direct mail, automate direct mail, gifts, things that are personalized inside of these systems as well. So you're starting to see this differentiation happening. And by the way, 10 years from now, everyone's going to have this playbook. So like, don't think that this is going to be where it stops. You always got to be learning. You always got to be figuring out what are my competitors not doing? What can I do more effectively? And how can I scale that? Right? Sending a carrier pigeon, probably not scalable. What is scalable is having a system where you can dedicate, resources, technical resources or human resources to a specific strategy. And that really sits in this ABM, ABS strategy, right? So it's like, how do you attack these accounts? And then how much do you want to spend on each account per lead? And then what do you need to do per opportunity, which I love that cost metric, by the way. Cost per opportunity is much better than the cost per lead. How much you want to spend for this opportunity, and what are those avenues and those different channels, omni-channel approach that you can take. This is like, by the way, Bubble Burst, after that was fax machine. People started using email. I used to sell by fax and handwritten notes.
Yeah.
Before fax, it was just handwritten notes and telephone. And so you can see these periods of time when the evolution of sales and the channel of sales has changed over time. And so you gotta keep up with the times. If you're not using direct mail, gifting, video, social selling, all those components, and you're still stuck in making phone calls and sending emails, like, dude, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose, and you're gonna get fired, and it's gonna suck. So don't do that.
That is the kiss of death for any sales leader who's not marching into their CFO's office right now and saying, we have got to digitize, create an omni-channel experience for engagement, and we've got to bring together all of the facets of how to engage with today's buyer, not just one. Like, the thing that kills me is when I think about sales leaders today who are still managing to metrics, like how many calls did you make today? Even on the SDRs. Now, I get it, in the absence of performance, you need to have something to fall back to. But
that's for performance. Yeah, that's for pips.
That's
like, activity is literally for pips. Like, you should never, unless you want to fire someone, never measure that. Yeah.
So you and I are on the same page. What I care about is the result. Did you book a meeting? And how did you get there, so that we can repeat that? As an example, maybe you did use the concept of being able to send out an email, and then it was a social touch point, and then there was a direct mail piece that you sent out, and then there was a video, right? What does that secret combination look like, so that when you are actually looking at your wins, you can then say, hey, wait a minute, I'm seeing a trend. All of our wins had 4 different touch points and included these elements. Holy Toledo. Yeah. That's insight, right? That's data. Now we need to look at replicating that to be able to see how to be able to create that type of engagement. So I think those are some of the missing elements, but let's talk a little bit about effectively engaging your audience, both with online and offline efforts, right? And you talk a lot about the offline, and we talk a lot about the online. The worlds coexist together, right? They have to coexist together. So let's talk a little bit about how to effectively engage your audience with both online and offline efforts. And how do you guys do that? Or how do you propose that sales leaders should be reframing and rethinking their go-to-market strategies?
When we started this business, I thought this was a mature market that I was going into, a mature category, right? Everybody has a marketing closet. Everybody has handwritten notes. Everybody has written letterhead notes and sent it in a letter, and sent it to direct, or even gone to a FedEx and gotten people to open things that they you can't get to. Everybody's done that strategy, right? So I was thinking, like, wow, that all of this has been so manual. I'm just going to start postal, and everyone's going to understand, right? Everybody's done this before. It's like, hey, do all that stuff, but use me to do that. We'll create a marketplace of all these vendors who do that, and then you just manage your budget, all your contacts, all your engagement through this, and just automate everything. I thought that'd be a natural transition of like, yeah, I want that. I'm going to give you my money. That has not been the case. Yes, we've been scaling, and we've been, and maybe it's a case of COVID, maybe not, and maybe I'm hard on ourselves because I think we can always do better. At the end of the day, it's still about educating people on how to leverage and how to scale the offline in direct correlation to how they've scaled digital. Not everyone has scaled the digital yet either.
So wait, let me just pause you right there. Hold on a second, right?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, 60% of sales leaders that we spoke to were still not convinced of this thing called the internet that their sellers should be using. Now, post-COVID, sales leaders right now in our business is performing very well. Sales leaders are like, oh my God, what was I thinking? How can you help me? So you're absolutely right on that particular topic right there, right? Like a lot of sales leaders weren't even there yet. So now we talk about entering in this offline component, take over from there.
We live in this bubble in this technology world that we've created. It's led us to do is actually be able to see like, what is the world doing on the sales side of things? The majority of folks are still not, maybe they're using a CRM and they've transferred all their databases onto the CRM, and they have, the majority of companies now are managing, their customer base, through workflows in their CRM, and maybe they have VoIP and they transferred to that. And maybe they started thinking about automating email, right? That is still, like, as you said, probably 40% have automated email. And so we always say it's super important to have this done before you come over here. Yes, you can come in and use Postal at any point in time. You don't have to have these systems. You don't have to integrate with anything. You can just use it if you want to manage your marketing closet without any of this stuff. That being said, you got to have your understanding of what your sequences are. So what your digital sequences are, and then what is working and what isn't. And you can always look at the reporting that you have in either in Salesforce, or if you're doing your own reporting, or if you're in Sales Loft or Outreach, which report on sequence meeting percentages. You got to look at what it is in your opportunities. So how many calls did it take to do an opportunity? How many emails did it take to an opportunity? And then with Postal, what we're able to do is, because everything is tracked inside of Salesforce or any CRM that you use, you can then see how many offline pieces I've had in this account or in this opportunity. How much did I spend in this opportunity in the offline? Did I send them a Yeti mug that was $10? Did I send them a piece of direct mail that was like 85 cents? Did I send them a box of candy that was $50? If that cost for that lead or that opportunity or that meeting was $80, you got to make sure that that's in the account record, and you can see, hey, this is how much activity and where activity happened in this meeting or this opportunity to get this business. And that is the key, man. You have to understand your metrics and what you're reporting on of your cost per opportunity and the actual actions that are happening in those opportunities. And you can do that through Salesforce reporting, or again, like I said, reporting through outreach cadence or outreach sequences and Sales Loft cadences.
Let me take a step back here, and I'll
sure, yeah.
For all the sales leaders who are listening in, let's define account-based selling, and then let's define, where does a sales leader start? And what do we fit in terms of the strategy that goes into account-based selling to focus in on a specific set of accounts or territory or geography or whatever? So first off, define account-based selling. And then secondarily, let's talk about the strategy that goes into preparing for an account-based selling strategy.
Yeah, I believe that account-based marketing, account-based selling are synonymous. So when you hear ABM or ABS, it really is the same exact thing. This is not like a new thing.
Right.
I remember when we, like, early on selling, what'd you get? You got a list of accounts. You didn't get leads, you got accounts.
Right.
So throughout this period of time, over the last 20 years, of technology and sales and marketing, we've gotten really good at finding out who our personas are and who our target industries are and target, size of companies are. And so by understanding the size of company, the persona that I'm going after, and the industry, that's allowed us to blueprint the actual people instead of the account. And so I've done it many different ways. The lead-based selling, which is really just, you distribute leads out to your sales reps or your SDRs, and they're just cranking through leads. And it's all process, super automated. You're just jamming volume down their throats. That works, by the way, if you are an SMB seller. That works if you're $5,000 or less. I would totally focus on optimizing that volume on the lead-based selling if you're $5,000 or less. If you're $5,000 or more, you can put an SDR on the process. That means that SDRs then become strategized to accounts, and sales folks become territory-based or industry-based. So that being said, you have these accounts that are set up, and then you're selling and blueprinting and executing a strategy in those accounts. And for me, account-based selling has everything to do with blueprinting, appointment dialing or sequencing, running demos. And when I say running demos, it's the qualification, the demo for the team that you're selling to in that account, which you might have technology that resides in multiple teams, and your cross-sell becomes cross-sells in that account. That strategy is you're going to have a cost and basically a omni-channel approach to attacking that one account. And so you need to be prepared and have a ABS strategy or policy set up per account. What we do is we say, okay, our enterprise accounts are 2,000 employees and above. Our mid-market is 500 employees to 2,000. And we're going to have our SMBs service themselves online. We'll give them support, but you can come to Postal and purchase that directly on there. Pretty standard approach. Your enterprise strategy, they're going to have a dollar amount. So for us, we're okay with a cost per opportunity of $500 or more. Like if we have a deal size, it's like 10%. So, we have a recurring model, kind of look at what your ASP is, take 10% of that, and then that should be what you're willing to spend on them. Whether that's through advertising, social marketing, direct mail engagement, or offline engagement, and then also just the resources that it takes to make those outbounds into those accounts. Lead generation strategies, LinkedIn Navigator, Sales Navigator, some of the other Zoom infos out there. But that being said, have your dollar amount that you want to spend per account, and then develop your sequences for your reps onto those blueprints that they create within that account. That really, for me, is scalable. Then you do that same thing in mid-market, and then you let that SMB, if it comes through, kind of service themselves.
Going back to something you said about the account-based marketing versus account-based selling, and you felt they were synonymous with each other. Functionally, I agree with you that they ultimately mean the same exact thing, but strategically, they ultimately mean the same exact thing, right? You're developing an account-based strategy for a specific account or accounts within a region or territory usually by salesperson or maybe by target market, et cetera. But I do see them as different. And the way I see them as different as you've got the account-based marketing. Where are all the things that marketing is going to do? Sales is never going to run the ad campaign. Sales is never going to run targeted ad campaigns. Sales is never going to produce the material, the content, all that stuff that goes into what marketing needs to do to be able to drive eyeballs from that account to the targeted buyer persona back to the organization. And marketing, likewise, will never do all of the grassroots, hands in the trenches type of activities that sales needs to participate to be able to drive a total account-based selling strategy, right? And so those are all the things like, as an example, I'm going to find my target buyer. I'm going to engage with them through social media. I'm going to actually pick up the phone. I'm actually going to send a targeted video message, and I've got the content that's inside there. I am going to launch a direct mail campaign to this individual. I'm going to send out some sort of gift to this individual or individuals within an organization. To me, it requires both sales and marketing to come to the table. And there's the selling motion and there's the marketing motion. Now, the question is what do we call it at the top? And I think if you meant by that, account-based marketing, account-based selling, it's one and the same. Okay, I'm with you on that one. But each group, marketing and sales, has all these levers that they need to pull in order to effectively go after a specific account. Would you agree with what I just said?
I think we're saying the same thing. It's really just account-based strategy.
There you go.
So it's
I'll roll with you on that.
ABST, account-based strategy. Because the structure of marketing and sales is a product of this account-based strategy.
Exactly right. You got it.
And the ownership of the brand and brand messaging and brand content and sales enablement is managed by marketing, which it speaks to the brand of that company, that account. And then your salesperson is creating personal connections and ensuring that it's the person-to-person engagement that they have. And so that really is, if you were to look at it in a chart format, that's really the structure of what it was. I've seen this so much, and I'm sure you do as well, is that if you don't have parity between marketing and sales, it's a big problem. I've seen a lot on offline. You have sales leaders going off and engaging folks through postal or not through postal that has not been approved with items that have not been approved through marketing. And the messaging that they're presenting out there is just not in tune with what the company brand is and what the product branding is and their employment brand, all that stuff. That branding is being missed. Salespeople, we just want to send volume and we want it to be easy. So like Postal does that really well. It's like send volume and it's easy. But we've found that marketing is managing a lot of the budgets. And I think it's the right move, is that they're kind of managing the budgets of the offline still, but they're hesitant to give the salespeople access to send it on behalf of them. And so that's a bit of a barrier when you think about digital. They're fine with. They're like, hey, we're going to make your sequences and work with sales to make sure it's all grammatically correct. And you're going to send all this stuff that's personalized, and we're going to have this brand message and do corporate videos. You can do personal videos, but it's got to be on this background with all this stuff. You got to make sure when you're engaging people on social that you have this policy, that you don't say these things. They're okay with that piece, but we're still seeing that marketing is holding on to the offline. And I think that's a miss, because we need to make sure that we're enabling salespeople to engage in the offline just like they do on the digital side of things.
Describe what that means. When you say salespeople to engage in the offline, vet that out for me.
Anything that is sent, whether it be direct mail or gifts or donations or gift cards or bottles of wine or whatever the stuff is that you send in the offline, the message that comes with that, whether you use like Postal's AI handwriting to send, the personalized notes or whatever, or you just like want to put a message on something and send it to somebody, that messaging and the content that they send needs to be aligned with what they believe this brand should be, because this is a representative of this brand. Right. So maybe you're anti-alcohol. A sales rep sends somebody a bottle of liquor and they're not a drinker, and they be, hey, this wasn't a good item, I don't drink. Maybe that's just a policy that your marketing team has. So just like they have policies on what to send in the digital world and how to engage on the digital world, they have those policies set on the offline world. And they also control the budget a lot of times of the swag closet or the marketing closet. So there needs to be a release, like an approval process of like, and you need a system order to do this, by the way, right? You need to have a system that they can approve the messages, approve the design of whatever they're sending. Maybe it's a brochure or a direct mail piece or a note card, a one pager. All that stuff needs to be housed in Postal or a system that will allow your reps to send that stuff off to actually have something physical that their clients can hold. I think we need to work better together as marketers and sales to create parity and ensure that there's parity between digital and offline as well. So messaging, assets, branding, colors, timing, all that stuff is very visible if it's not right in the sequence.
Do you think that direct mail is still relevant right now in this era that we're in this new normal of selling?
I think it's never been more relevant than right now. And, we get a lot of folks saying, I'm just not sure about sending direct mail pieces or things to people at their homes. Believe it or not, people are extremely receptive to receiving anything at home, anything that takes them away from the daily norms that they're facing with on Zoom calls or phone calls, on putting data into whatever system they have. Dude, people want a break. And so pattern interrupt is the most basic feature of what we're trying to sell at Postal. Break up the day, give someone something that they can physically engage with. We're actually doing a podcast marketing series, which will have aired by the time we aired, called Neuromarketing, and how the engagement of offline assets affects your brain and how you engage and create connections with brands. Okay, we're going to release some studies on that, which you guys can find on postal.io. But you got to engage with people where they are. It's got to be the right message with the right branding at the right timing, and it's got to be relevant in the sales process. So never been more relevant today. Yeah, is it more challenging to find out where people live? Absolutely. Are there resources to find where people live? Absolutely. And they're built into Postal, right? You can find where people live directly in Postal. You can send them branded material from your reps. And we believe that that is a strategy that the companies that believe in pattern interrupt are going to win by.
I think I'm looking at this in one of my headlines: account-based selling strategy, pattern interrupt.
That's really what it is, man.
So one of our customers was so elated with some of the results of what we helped their sales team do on our Selling with Video sales training program that she sent me an amazing, super nice, very, very nice bottle of wine from Sonoma Wine Country. And I got an email, and it was a FedEx message or something like that, that basically said, hey, someone has to be 21 and over to be able to accept this. And it didn't tell me what it was. So I went to my wife and I was like, hey, babe, did you order something that got to be 21 and over to be able to accept? And she was like, no. And I'm like, this is so strange. Like, I got something so random, was I had to be 21 and over. And I couldn't put the, two things together. And I was just like,
love it.
Huh, what is it? It's supposed to come like by whatever it was, 2 days from now. Anyway, so the next day
and so you're thinking about it and you're like engaged with it.
Now it's built up this interest to me, right?
Totally.
Like obviously it was a bottle of wine or it was alcohol, but I didn't know that at the time. And all I knew was I had to be 21 or over. And I was thinking, am I the right person? It didn't tell me like where it was coming from. It just said, here's my shipment information. And I was like, Next day I was thinking about it. And then the next day after that, I forgot all about that. And like 3 days later, it came, or whatever it was, the X number of days later. And when it came, it was this package, And it was, he had to sign for it. And it was like, 21 or over, you had to, prove it out and everything. And my wife had to show their ID or whatever it was. And so it came, and I was like, she came and she's like, oh, I've got the package. And I was like, oh, let me see it. Like, I just built all this anticipation for what it is, open it up. And it was like this phenomenal, really nice bottle of wine, a Chardonnay. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Right. So I was so excited about, getting this. And it was all this like anticipation that worked me up over it. And this was one of our customers sending it to me as a thank you gift, right? Now, normally we would be sending out as a customer appreciation. It was the exact opposite. But what you just described was in the middle of my day, she came over in the middle of me working. It was like, let me see what this is. And I was all this anticipation. It definitely was a pattern interrupt, if you would. But also was
that experience, just to Mario, sorry to interrupt, but that experience that you just described, I had that same experience through someone that I gave a recommendation to. He was one of our old lawyers during the M&A process that we had. And he got the lead general counsel position at Benchmark. And I gave him a reference for it because I knew the hirer. And he sent me, a bottle of really nice whiskey, and it came through, and he didn't say anything about it. It came through. And that was the experience. I was like, this needs to be, if we can have the same experience in Postal, this is gold, man. Like, if I can send a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of wine, or just figure out, hey, what do people like that are executives at these target customers? And I can send this, doesn't need to be branded, right? Doesn't need to have our logo all over it. It's just like, hey, I'm thinking of you. This is just an example of how you can use our platform. Here's a nice bottle of wine. They're going to remember that process. And I will tell you, you don't need a remote control car and hide the remote and say, call me and get the remote. That experience that people have with offline items, especially today, are huge. And I really do believe it's going to be the difference between selling an enterprise deal or not selling enterprise deals. If you don't have it in your big deals, like, your competitors are going to start using us and they're going to start sending stuff. It might be swag. It might just be like really nice stuff that you think that these people might like, or you might have done the research and personalize that item based on what their likes are.
Let me just tell you one more story. I think this is really relevant on this whole concept of pattern interrupt, especially now in a totally virtualized selling world, right? Even if and when there is a cure found for COVID, things won't swing back to the way it was where everybody's in the office. I mean, look how many companies right now are putting out policies saying, hey, permanent work from home. I think it was just REI. REI just announced they're selling their massive corporate headquarters and they're getting rid of all their real estate because everybody's going to go work from home, right? The pendulum has definitely swung. But what's interesting is, I'll tell you a story. A few weeks ago, one of our team members saw that I was online, and I don't know how we were IMing each other. It was 11:30 p.m. their time, and it was 9:30 p.m. my time. So next thing I know, the phone rings. It's the individual. And the first thing I said was, what are you doing working? Of course, I'm working as well.
Right.
And so that, they told me, oh, I'm just trying to catch up, blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, why don't you go take a break? Like, just go relax, just go do your own thing. Like, let this go. And the individual says this to me, and this was like really eye-opening. Look, with all due respect, I appreciate you being concerned. Thank you. But please don't ask me to do that. And I was like, okay, why? Like, I'm thinking that's the good leadership, right? And the individual says, look, we're in COVID. I'm single. I haven't been around somebody, touched somebody for the last 5 months. I'm totally depressed. I can't go out, can't be around other people. I'm in lockdown. And you're asking me to stop doing something that's taking my mind off of my depression from not being able to have someone around me so I can actually have somebody. And then they said, look, you have your wife, you've got your 2 kids, you get to hug someone every single day. I don't. And the fact of the matter is I don't want to go to bed thinking about this. So I'm actually doing some work, and I really appreciate if you stop asking me to not work. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I never even thought about that. And that hit me hard. I never even thought about, like, what is that person going through? And by the way, there are many single people that we
the
sell
majority.
to, right?
Yeah.
So I tell you that story to this idea of pattern interrupt, right? With the idea that many people are going through many things. And this whole idea about getting something directly to your door, right? A gift or whatnot, it totally interrupts the normal pattern of things that they're involved with. But imagine like getting something from somebody else, albeit it's not a bottle of wine. Well, it could be a bottle of wine, but maybe it's not a bottle of wine. Maybe it's something super small.
Anything you open, you create a different brand experience when you actually engage with something offline. I can't wait to deliver the report that we have and the data that supports why you need to be using offline and why you should be sending things to people's home. But I have not heard anybody tell me that they are not happy to see the UPS man.
Absolutely. And you get excited about that. Someone knocks on your door, like in the early stages of COVID, someone knocked on your door. You're like, wait, why are you knocking on my door? Now someone knocks on your door. You're like, please, put on a mask.
Beer? You want to hang out with me?
We'll stay 6 feet away. Don't worry. You want a beer?
Right. No, I'm with it, man. I know. Like we had personal relationships with our FedEx and the UPS and Postman.
Exactly.
They're literally, we see them more than we see our friends.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
So there's something there, man. And you're ensuring that your employees are not only happy, like you can't really even call it employee satisfaction because everybody's miserable right now, right? It's just who deals with it better. I'm pretty accustomed to dealing with miserable situations because I'm a startup guy.
Yeah.
I get 1,000 no's to one yes. Cool. I'm good. I'm happy to that one yes, right? We got 3 kids, I got twins, like all the, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of challenges, but like a lot of folks have a lot of mental challenges with what's going on. So I think that there's another opportunity that we're actually exploring right now. Virtual events is going to be one opportunity that we're going to be releasing here soon on Postal. And so actually, how do you manage virtual events? How do you manage the offline content that you send for those virtual events? That will be available through Postal. But we also are focusing on employee engagement. So, how can you use offline to ensure that your people are okay? Not everybody wants to do, actually, nobody wants to do Zoom calls anymore. Everybody's over Zoom calls. Everyone wants to be in person and like have some physical like interaction. You can do that through sending people things that will allow them to be active. Like we have like gardening kits through Postal, or we have like cocktail kits through Postal, or, we've been thinking about, hey, how do we have like cooking kits and then like have an experience on Postal where you can send them a ticket to go attend Gordon Ramsay's online class or something. There's all these different ways that you can engage with people. And if we're going to be truly the Marketo of the offline world, we have to be thinking about what do people care about? How do you engage with people that you're not next to? And how do you create those pattern interrupt and the lasting memories of that engagement? Employees, customers, and prospects. I think that's where it's at.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Back to that story of the individual I was mentioning in our organization, receiving something. For example, the individual ended up receiving, this is the crazy part, the face mask, right? That has our logo on there. And as soon as it came in the mail, first thing that the individual did was take a picture and send it to me, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, look what I got, right? They're so excited about these small things. And I use that as an internal employee. The principle is completely applicable to your customers that we're engaging with, right? We're trying to find a way to connect with them and to build trust. This offline world really has a way to be able to bring in those buyers. And to your point, the pattern interrupt thing, I think, is one of the most important elements of an account-based selling strategy, that they're getting something, especially right now, that they otherwise wouldn't have. They may have before, but now it has more value today as a result of the environment that we're living in.
Yeah, and not everyone's doing it, man. That's the reality. Is if you're doing something different than your customer base. We love books too. I haven't talked about books. We have a huge library of books on our site, and I love seeing the books that our customers are sending. It depends on obviously the persona that you're going after, and there's content for every persona on there. But actually, when you're reading something, and if you're physically interacting with a book, you have a different experience there, and you're spending more time with that book too. Hey, a bottle of wine might last you an hour, right? But a book is going to sit on your shelf. Your book's going to have, you're going to spend time reading that book. I'm also a big fan of books and books in the sales process as well.
Absolutely. So the idea is here, and the message that we're walking away with is for all the sales leaders and salespeople listening in. And by the way, you can go out to postal.io, and this is not a commercial. As you all know, I don't do commercials, but we are a user, and we've added into our sequences of engagement. And the key here is you've got to have an omni-channel approach to touching your prospects. And with that in mind, I think the message here is sales leaders, if you've got phone and email, you need to add on all of these other elements: social, video, offline, touches and approaches to your buyer level engagement. And then you've got marketing that's doing their job, which is all the advertisement, the digital, all those things that need to be done. So I think that's really the key message here. Erik, it's been fabulous having you on the show here. We're coming up on time here. I want people to know how to get connected with you if they wanted to connect. Is it through LinkedIn, on Twitter? What's the best way to be able to follow you?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I respond to every single LinkedIn message that's sent. Whether I say no, thank you, or yeah, it's interesting, I'll take some time. And I try to be as active as I can with providing content, not only through our brand Postal, but also through sales leadership advice. And I think we're in this together, and we're here to make our clients successful, as are you and your business. Even if you don't purchase Postal, at the end of the day, you got to make sure you do things differently.
So if you want to connect with Erik, we'll have his LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well, but it's Erik and it's Kostelnik, Kostelnik. So make sure you reach out to him. He's the CEO and founder of Postal.io. And Erik, I always ask this last question of all my guests at the end of the show, and that is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
I'm gonna have to say Braveheart. I'm gonna have to say
Braveheart.
that one. I've probably seen that movie. It's probably between Braveheart and Rudy. Those are kind of, I'm passionate about both of those movies, and I watch a lot of movies now. I'm sure everybody's watching a lot of movies. There's been some pretty incredible ones. Inception also is probably up there as well. So.
I've been binge watching Hulu, and my newest show is The Good Doctor. I went through 3 episodes in 2 weeks. Anyways, listen, man, it's been great having you on the show. And for all of you out there, my motto: omnichannel approach to sales prospecting. Focus in on an account-based selling strategy, and don't turn that dial. Listen to this very important message right now.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a rating and review on iTunes. I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to themodernsellingpodcast.com. Hey, since you'll be on our site, be sure to check out our Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by my co-founder and CMO, Bernie Borges. Thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.